What is going on, Birdland? Steven Heckman here with the final strike on deadline day. And we have a wonderful and special guest, Jared Watson, the co-founder and chief editor for the Baltimore Battery, is here to join us to talk about the amazing whirlwind of trades and moves that have happened over the last 24 hours with the Baltimore Orioles. So without further ado, Jared, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience if they don't know you yet?
Yeah, hey, Steven, thanks for having me, man. As you said, I'm a co-creator of the BaltimoreBattery.com, which Steven and I both write for. I'm also the editor for the site, so I have to read and edit every single piece we put out. And today was an extremely busy day for Steven and I, especially. So with all the moves going around, so we have a lot to talk about. We'll get right into it, Steven. I'm going to let you do your thing and host this thing, and I'm going to comment as best I can on each of these deals that went down today for the Orioles.
Yeah, today we knew most of this was going to happen. We actually look forward to it. We fortunately tried to film something about this earlier in this week, but due to technical difficulties, we were unable to release that episode. Um, but I guess the biggest place to start is where the heart and soul of our club was, and that falls with Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn, and Ramon Laureano.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the core, the guys that were on expiring contracts that the Orioles and Mike Elias were pretty open and honest about dealing at this deadline, right? Those were the two biggest names, Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn. Ramon Laureano was kind of interesting just because of that $6.5 million club option. He could have stuck around maybe for next year, if the Orioles truly are going to be competitive next year like they think they will be. But in the end, you pair Laureano and O'Hearn together to get a massive 6 prospect haul. I mean, this is probably the biggest prospect haul Elias has gotten in his tenure as GM with the Orioles. I mean, this is a big time get. And Cedric Mullins, that's a 3 pitcher haul of prospects as well. We got the Mets 14th overall prospect, Anthony Nunez, 30th overall prospect in Ramon Gomez, and then an unranked prospect, Chandler Marsh. Uh, Very arm heavy on the prospects that we've seen this year, the Orioles get. And it's a haul, Steven. I mean, it's close to 20 some players the Orioles got over the last week or so by trading almost all of their rental, quote unquote, expiring contract players. So there's a lot to go over. I'm sure we'll touch on each thing, but that's kind of the basis of it. The Mike Elias did exactly what he said he was going to do at this deadline. That's get rid of those expiring deals and try to shoot for 2026.
That's the great thing. One of the things I noticed is we did, yeah, it's close to 20 prospect we picked up. The interesting aspect is only 4 of those prospects actually were position players.
Mhm.
And the one that intrigues me the most is the shortstop we got from the Cubs, De La Cruz.
Mhm.
There's so much raw potential there. He is actually one of the top international signings of the offseason. Got the 4th highest signing bonus, and full of talent. And I know a lot of people, when you see a shortstop, everybody's like, well, we got shortstops, but shortstop's supposed to be the most athletic of the positions out there.
Right. Right, exactly.
I
And
don't foresee any of these players as somebody who good.
no, I was just gonna say he's young. Basically in high school. In the Dominican, playing baseball is more important than going to college, getting an education, because that's how they make their money down there. And they love the sport. They're so passionate about the sport. 18 years old, Wilfrid de la Cruz, and like you said, he was in this most recent international signing period. Um, he's. I tell you what, the thing that stuck out to me with him is that strikeout to walk ratio. He's struck out 24 times and he's walked 26. So you always love to see that, the more walks than strikeouts. It seems like the play discipline's good based on that. It's kind of one of those things where you can't tell too much because it's only a short sample. He's only played 27 professional games, but he's now ranked the Orioles' 21st overall prospect. Um, and he's hasn't risen above the DSL yet. So that gives you a sign of just how talented they think he is and why he was paid so much by the Chicago Cubs in this international signing bonus period.
One of the great things is we did score a couple of top 10 prospects in the final trade of the day. Um, this the trade with the Padres, it netted us three pitchers and three infielders. And the stats on all these players, with the exception of maybe the first baseman, the 29th ranked prospect they had, he fits in more like but it's the closest resemblance I can bring up to, but a David Ortiz type player, not somebody who's going to play much in the field, but has the bat to actually be dangerous offensively and be a pretty much everyday DH.
Right, right. Victor Figueroa is the guy you're talking about. He was the Padres' 29th ranked prospect. And like you said, it's pretty much a power bat. He has struggled with some off speed pitches, it looks like, but he's just 21 years old. He's super young still, but he has the ability to drive the ball to all power, all areas of the field, whether it be left, center, or right. So his growth at first base, that's going to be big for the O's if they decide to keep him around because, well, I'm sure we'll get into this too later on, but I have a feeling a lot of the guys that were acquired in the last week might not be here at this point next year, and Elias will flip them to try to get some major league talent during the off season at some point because if all models show correctly and if he's a man of his word, the Orioles are going to try to be competitive in 2026. So what does that mean? You use some of these prospects, you use that capital to go out and get somebody like a Sandy Alcantara in Miami who has 2 years of control left. Somebody like that that can really lock down your starting rotation, will give you a few years of service and, yeah, but, again, it was a great haul for the Orioles, honestly. They got 4 of the Padres' top 30 prospects in this deal for, O'Hearn and Laureano, and I know they were fan favorites. I was a big Ryan O'Hearn guy. I loved that man. He was one of my favorite Orioles I've ever watched, but getting this haul back,
Oh, clap back all the way.
it was worth it in the end for sure, I think, for expiring deals especially.
Well, the way I see it, and unfortunately, and I hope Birdland comes around to this because most of the social media, and we all know how social media can be, they wanted Mike Elias' head coming into the trade deadline. He comes out and does what he should have done. I mean, realistically, this was the most legitimate way to handle what's going on in 2026 with these deals, acquiring the prospects, building that farm system back up because it is pretty depleted, especially after the last couple of years. But I think what Elias has done here is also open the door for top prospects such as Kobe Mayo to start getting regular playing time. Dylan Beavers possibly to be brought up and get regular playing time. See more of Brandon Young, Cade Povich, Kyle Bradish, and Tyler Wells should be back within the next couple weeks. I mean, the biggest area that I see is going to need improvement is going to be the bullpen. And yet, our bullpen before the deadline was the fourth worst in ERA in the league. And they almost were in the top 10 for blown saves in the league as well. So I don't really see how people can get upset when we got rid of players who were not helping our team this year and definitely wouldn't be helping our team next year. So I
Yeah.
don't, what do you foresee as the issue on how to correct this?
Well, I mean, I think to your point, I wanna comment on this because we have a few members of our group, of our Baltimore Battery staff who, were arguing, about trading these relievers, right? But, the one that kinda
No
surprised us
names.
the most, like the one who surprised us the most, I think, was Brian Baker just because of the years of control he had, but the rest of them weren't really a surprise. I mean, Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto were both on expiring deals. Uh, Andrew Kittredge had a club option for $9 million, but, it was one of the things where if you can get a top 30 prospect for Andrew Kittredge, who's 35 years old, you're more than likely gonna do that every chance you can get. Um But I think the fact that people didn't like moving all of these bullpen pieces is just because who the hell is gonna fill in now? Like, right? Who's gonna come up and fill in these spots? Because Felix Bautista's on the IL with a shoulder. He might not pitch again this season. If I was any part of the training staff or in the front office, I wouldn't pitch Felix a
I'm
single
down.
inning of the year. And, Yennier
I'm
Cano
down. I agree.
Yennier Cano has been a struggle out of the bullpen. He's a shell of who he once was. He is so different from what he was in 2023, but you kept him around. You couldn't find a trade partner for him, so he's gonna pitch the rest of this year, at the major league level. And then Keegan Aiken, nice lefty to have in the pen, but other than that, you're gonna have young guys like Corbin Martin and Cade Stroud and Grant Wolfram. Yeah, and you might have to see somebody like a CNL Perez again at the big league level because of all these moves. So,
Talk about a shell.
it's gonna be yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how the bullpen shapes out, but then you also have some DFAs going around the league. Ryan Presley of the Cubs, who's not having a fantastic year by any means. He has been DFA'd by the Cubs as of this recording, so the Orioles might be able to go out and grab him and let him finish out the year, just eat some innings up in the late innings especially.
Presley would not actually be a bad piece to fit in our bullpen. Didn't he pitch with Tampa Bay did before, didn't he?
He pitched with, I
Am I thinking
believe,
of the right Presley?
Tampa. Yeah, Minnesota, Houston was the primary. Uh, but yeah, I mean, he was Houston's closer during those World Series runs and those ALCS consecutive ALCS appearances. So, I mean, he's a proven arm. He is an older guy, but he's somebody who can eat up innings for you. Maybe a change of scenery out of Chicago will do him well. I mean, who knows? But he's going to get picked up. He's not going to be a free agent the rest of the season. So, yeah, why not the Orioles at
I,
this
I
point,
do
right?
have I do have to touch base on one thing just because I'm proud of this. But Ramon Urias, I called it, and a lot of people didn't know why I was calling it, but I kept looking around the league, and third base and second base were the most sought after positions, I think, at the deadline, even before the deadline. And it just seemed like Urias would be the perfect fit for a club like the Houston Astros, possibly even the San Francisco Giants, maybe the Padres, who had injuries or who had struggles at infield positions. And, for years, most of the people in Birdland didn't want to Urias around. And now that he's traded, everybody's, you know, crying that we should have never gotten rid of him, it was a foolish move. And I just, I see him as I like Urias, don't get me wrong. And he's the reason why some of our prospects aren't here anymore because of what he's accomplished in the last 4 years with us, but he wasn't a part of the future. And you and me have discussed this before at the ball field, online before, this week. Urias is a good enough player that will help somebody. He just wasn't a part of our future. And I feel like giving the ability to somebody else who is a minor league player who could be around for a while versus somebody who's 31, will be 32 by the time next season is halfway over. It didn't add up to keep him. And I don't know if you agree with me on it, but is there a way you can make it make sense as to why moving on from Urias was a smart decision?
Well, like you said, he's gonna be what, 31, or he is 31. He's gonna be, and you know what?
So
It's
he's
the
31
fact
now,
that
he'll be 32 next June.
okay, so he'll be 32 next June. He doesn't have a lockdown spot in the Oriole lineup. He's not going to play every day because Jordan Westburg, Gunnar Henderson, and Jackson Holiday need to play every single day. So he's going to be on the bench quite a bit. And you saw, Steven, the last month or so, Ramon Arias got cold with the bat. He did not show up
Yep,
offensively because he was sitting so much. And Tony Mansolino couldn't find a
big
spot in the lineup for him, with other guys like Kobe Mayo actually finding success. And this is big time for Kobe, speaking of that, because he's gonna get much more playing time now with O'Hearn and Arias off the team. So he's gonna be in the lineup every single day now, and that's big for the O's. Um, but I was kinda shocked by the trade, honestly. I didn't see, Ramon going anywhere just because of that, versatility he brings. He can play any spot in the infield other than catcher. He has a solid, uh, clutch gene in him, I guess we can call it, and he had a year of control left, so that was the biggest thing,
Oh yeah,
but, um, I was guilty as charged with Ramon Arias. I was not a fan of him, back in 21, 22. I just didn't see where he fit in that picture of those deep playoff run Oriole teams, but he changed my mind, man. Like, he was a big part of the 2024 Orioles. In fact, he was the best player on the Orioles in August of last year. He was just he came up clutch
very
when
much
he
so.
needed to. But like you said, somebody younger, maybe like a Jeremiah Jackson in Norfolk or a Vimael Machine, can now come up and get an opportunity, who doesn't necessarily
Oh, for
have to be
sure.
in the lineup each day. That's big. But the Astros had a need for a third baseman. They were my one of my top 3 winners of the deadline. They reunited with Carlos Correa. Of course, that's huge in itself. Uh, but when Jeremy Pena gets back to health this year, you're gonna have Correa slide over to third base, so Ramon's gonna be back in that utility role like he was with the Orioles, so I wonder how that's gonna
Exactly.
affect his play.
It's interesting you brought up, Houston as being one of the winners of the day. And when you look at teams around the league, you see the New York Mets who basically depleted their farm system for a bunch of rentals. Now they've reshaped their bullpen, I will give them that, but I don't feel they did anything to improve their team tremendously enough to be, a World Series favorite. The Dodgers, they made one move, which the Dodgers have more depth than half the teams in baseball. But, I expected something from the Giants. I honestly expected something from the Brewers, who did absolutely nothing. And then the Boston Red Sox kind of were a head scratcher as they're a team competing in the AL East. I give my winner to Seattle today because I feel like they basically took the AL by storm with their moves. And I've got to throw my loser cap into the Brewers and the Red Sox for failing to do anything to improve their team for the postseason run.
Yeah, yeah, and, I don't know if you saw it, Steven, but, I mean, these aren't groundbreaking moves by any means, but the Brewers did acquire Shelby Miller and Jordan Montgomery at the very end of the deadline, but Jordan Montgomery's hurt, and he's not gonna pitch for you
Yeah,
this year, and Shelby Miller is it's a nice little middle reliever, to have, but a veteran, but not a splash move, right?
but
Like,
nothing. It's almost like they did it to. It's almost like they did it for the sake of doing it.
yeah, right, like, "Oh, we wanna be in the party a little bit, right? So let's pick this guy up for some reason." I don't know, and I'm like you, I think the Giants missed out on a big opportunity to add something. Um, they made their big deal with getting Devers a couple months ago now, whatever it has been, but, Ryan O'Hearn would have fit really nicely with the Giants. I think that was
He
an
he would have.
ideal landing spot for him, but, the
I
Padres,
agree.
the San Diego Padres, they're my winner of the deadline. I mean, first of all, 2 words, Mason Miller. That's all you need to know. 4 years of control,
That was a hell of a steal.
4 years of control for that guy who's they're saying now he might convert back to a starting pitcher, which would be insane to see. Um And then you get JP Sears along with him, who's a serviceable starter. He's a 4 or 5 starter, I guess, but, um, yeah, and then you go out and get, O'Hearn and Laureano, which I thought Laureano was a perfect fit for the Padres. He's exactly what that club
Yes.
needed. They needed a corner outfield bat who's having a fantastic year, and you know what? You know who else can play the corner outfields if needed? Ryan O'Hearn. He provides a
O'Hearn.
left-handed bat, and, it was just a good overall day for the Padres. They got Freddie Fermin to solidify a catching role there with Elias Diaz as well, and they got, Nestor Cortez was thrown into the mix there as well. So the Padres are my day one or my
That
trade deadline winners, and I think it's, leaps and bounds above what any other team has done, to be honest with you.
I would agree. Right now, after trade deadline, you would honestly probably have to put, The Dodgers have to be at the top because of everybody the Dodgers has, but the
Mm,
Padres definitely would be up there with them, and you gotta put Seattle at the top in the AL.
yeah.
I just
Yeah,
don't
for
see
sure.
anybody in the AL who made the moves that would suffice, being able to compete with the lineup that Seattle's gonna put out there, and they already had deep pitching.
Well, the Tigers did nothing. Speaking of, they got 2 bullpen arms, and I believe is that it? Is that all they did? Yeah, I think the Tigers got Paul
Charlie Morton.
Sewald and Charlie Morton, of course. They got Paul Sewald, they got Kyle Finnegan, and they got a 41-year-old Charlie Morton. Now, if I'm a Tigers fan, I am not happy. You are one of the best teams in the American League. You have a young core, and you didn't do anything to essentially make yourself better in the long run. And you see somebody like the
Just have to
Mariners. Yeah, right, exactly, but you see somebody like the Mariners, like you said, they get 2 power bats that just, it makes their lineup instantly a threat, and especially in a winnable division like the West. All you have to worry about really is the Astros, because I don't think the Rangers did enough either. Um, but yeah, the Mariners are scary just because of that pitching staff that they have, and now when you can supplement your lineup with Eugenio Suarez and a Josh Naylor, you're looking at a team that could be very scary in tournament style baseball in a series where you're going to have to face Brian Wu, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Luis Castillo. That's going to be a tough, tough dance for whoever is matched up with the Mariners.
Yeah, especially if they get any home field advantage or home series advantage, because that
Yeah.
ballpark is not a comfortable ballpark to hit him when it gets cold.
Yeah. Not comfortable
What
to hit in general.
No, not at all. What do you think about the Cedric Mullins trade to the New York Mets?
I think we all kind of figured this was gonna be the ultimate end place for Cedric. The Phillies were looking more for a right-handed bat when they got Harrison Bader, so that took them out of the equation. The Padres looking for more of a corner guy. So the Mets just seemed like really the perfect and only destination for Cedric, if not for Houston, and they decided to go with Jesus Sanchez, another corner. But I tell you what, this is a good fit for the Mets. They needed somebody to solidify, especially defensively, that center field position in Queens. You're going to have Brandon Nimmo and Juan Soto on each side of you. You're not going to have as much pressure because you're going to be in the bottom part of a lineup that is super top heavy, if you think about it, with Soto, Alonso, Lindor, all those guys, Brandon Nimmo, like I mentioned. So I think this was the perfect spot for said, honestly. I think he's gonna thrive there. Um, his 9.92 career fielding percentage, that'll play anywhere, really. But I think this matches up well for him. It's gonna get him to the postseason again. And I think the Orioles got a nice package getting 2 top 30 prospects from the Mets plus one other. So it was a move that had to be done, whether we like it or not. Especially me, because I'm a huge Cedric Mullins guy. I know he's declined a little offensively every single season since his 30-30 year, but it's just something that had to be done. It's a business move at the end of the day.
When I see it, the biggest thing, with Cedric Mullins is a lot of people like the nostalgia he brings. And it's the same connection that Santander had with the fans. They were here from a difficult time in the organization's transition period, not only from manager and GM, but also from ownership. And they basically were front and center during the teardown and rebuild of the Baltimore Orioles.
Right.
But the biggest thing with Cedric Mullins I'm gonna miss is the defense that he provides. And I've said it many times on the podcast, I'll die on that hill that Cedric Mullins was the best defender in the American League in center field.
Hmm.
He might not have had the arm, but you put a ball in play anywhere and there's an opportunity, he's close to it, there's a 90% chance it's gonna get caught.
Well, you saw that in the last week of games. He made 5 incredible catches, and that really won the Orioles that series against the Blue Jays, to be honest with you, his
Mhm.
performance in that last series. So, yeah, the defensive metrics don't necessarily like him, but you have to use the eye test for somebody like him. When you get to watch him for 162 games, that man's gonna wow you defensively, and especially and even on the base paths, when he gets on base, we know how much of a threat he can be, He can steal your bases. He can come up clutch and hit a homer when you need it, and, he's a solid player. He's gonna be a very nice addition to that Mets team, and he's not gonna have the pressure of being the guy there because there's 3 the guys in New York, right?
Exactly
He
right.
he's gonna fit nicely in the bottom of that order.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. I was intrigued with the thought process of the Mets, and it's funny. I have a buddy who's a Mets fan in Tennessee, and I was joking with him today. I said, "So how's it feel that the Mets depleted their farm system to basically build a bullpen and grab a center fielder?"
Yeah.
And he's like shaking his head. He's like, "Oh, you got jokes." But when I look at these trades the Mets made, yeah, they had the ability to do it. It's fine and understand that, but I don't think they were calculated enough for what they got in return versus what they gave out. And that might be where I think the Mets might be in trouble because in the aspect of if somebody goes down or if they lose somebody this offseason, the free agent market's not going to be as fruitful as many people think. And with an active Orioles squad, which I expect to be highly active after we got rid of 9 players, you know, they're gonna be one of the few teams that can compete, but they're not gonna be competing for what we're competing for because they don't need the pieces and holes that we need filled.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is a must-win, World Series year for the Mets. Like you said, they have a ton of rental players now. Their bullpen is really good, though. I mean, now that they
Yeah.
got all those players, it's probably second best to the San Diego Padres that we talked about. Uh, but, when you have Ryan Helsley and Edwin Diaz ending games for you, 8 and 9 innings, I mean, that's a recipe for success, especially in the postseason these days where a starter can give you 4 innings and then the rest of the way is a reliever. That's just how the postseason's been lately. But yes, they're gonna have a lot of free agents at year's end, especially Pete Alonso. That's their biggest one. They have to figure out if they're gonna keep him long term, if he wants to be there long term. They have a lot of decisions to make, and, depending on how Cedric does there, they might try to extend him as well. We'll see, but um, yeah, I can see what you're saying with the Mets and how your friend reacted to that. And then I have a Mets fan as well, and he was pretty thrilled with their deadline overall. So we'll see. I mean, it's mixed reactions because you want to build a championship team now, but you also want to have years of control later, right? And it's hard to do that a lot of the times, but, their bullpen is top 3 in the league, and, it's gonna help them get to October and hopefully more for them.
And it's funny you say that about building a championship team and also have years of competitive balance after that. And, I saw a lot of people throwing that, we're in year 8 and we're basically rebuilding again. I don't see the Baltimore Orioles rebuilding.
No,
95% of the team that was here for 101 victories and 92 victories is still here.
right.
Our bullpen this year was the 4th worst in baseball, most of the year the worst in baseball. So we had a little bit of improvement, but Andrew Kittredge, as much as I enjoyed the signing, he was very shaky when he came out and pitched for us.
Yeah,
As you alluded to it earlier, Yennier Cano. We saw Cionel Perez basically regress to the guy he was 3 years ago, where you didn't know what was gonna happen when he walked in the game. You
right.
know, Keegan Aiken, as much as a lot of us have wanted him gone for, I think it feels like 20 years, the guy's been our most loyal pen and consistent pen arm
One of the
since
most reliable arms in the American League, really.
yeah, pretty much since last August.
Yeah,
So, Felix Bautista was doing well, and we're still waiting to find out what's going on with him. I really hate when I start hearing that they're getting multiple opinions from doctors because it always scares me. Especially when you have the similar thing happening with Grayson Rodriguez, they're getting multiple opinions. But I just I don't see where anybody that we got rid of was going to be a detrimental problem in not being able to compete next year. Whereas we can go out and get people, but we also have excuse me, we have a stocked farm system with plenty of areas to fill, especially in the outfield. I mean, we have more outfield depth than most teams have outfield depth through 3 organizations in their league. You know,
yeah.
so I don't foresee where this trade deadline did anything but help us for 2026.
Right, and, that's the argument with a lot of people, especially on, Twitter, it's a mess in itself sometimes. They're like, "Oh, another 20-year-old pitcher we won't see till 2030." Well, that 20-year-old pitcher could get you a Sandy Alcantara in the offseason.
Exactly.
Like, it's not we're not I can guarantee you that you're not gonna keep all 20 some prospects
Mm-mm.
that you got this trade deadline. You're just not. You're gonna use them to get big league pieces like we saw when he acquired Corbin Burns, when Elias acquired Zach Eflin at the deadline last year. This is what's gonna happen. And yeah, you're gonna keep some of them, obviously. But yeah, that's the goal is you're gonna use that prospect capital that you got from these moves, and you're going to use that to better the team in 2026. And like you said, it's most important. The core is still intact. Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holiday, Jordan Westberg, Adley Rutschman are all still on this team. Colton Cowser's there. And, whether Felix is injury dependent, he's going to be there as well. We'll figure out more with Grayson down the line, but you got Kyle Bradish still. The biggest need for the Orioles is really on the pitching side. They don't need any offensive help, really. You're going to get production from your young outfielders and Dylan Beavers of the world, and Samuel Basallo is going to be up whether it's in September this year or next year on opening day. So offensively, you're going to be fine. It's just you need a solid number one starting pitcher to pair with Kyle Bradish. Hopefully, Grayson is healthy and doesn't require Tommy John, which we don't know anything yet, but we'll see. Trevor Rogers has looked good. If he can continue that, you're going to have a nice little 1, 2, 3 in the rotation if you go out and get somebody. And you're going to have to sign some quality bullpen arms. You just are. I mean, that's what's going to win you games in October is having a nice bullpen, right? You can have great starters, but your bullpen is what makes or breaks you, especially in the last few years we've saw in the playoffs. So Elias is going to have some work to do for sure. We're not denying that whatsoever. But for what it was worth, for getting them to this point, I think he'd had a pretty darn good trade deadline for what it was. We should have never have gotten to this point to begin with, though. We should have been adding at the deadline. But for what it was, I think he got a decent prospect package and haul for what it was. It was like 20 some players. So
Yeah. You get rid of 9 players, you get 20 some players. You're definitely doing something right. And the great thing is only if I remember correctly, I might have to double check this, but if I remember correctly, 3 or 4 of those players were outside the top 30 prospects in their organization. So
mhm.
that means we got about 16 players who rank in as a top 30 prospect within their teams. And when you look at a guy like Boston Bateman, the number 4 prospect for the Padres, that's a 6'7" lefty that, if we decide not to keep him, tell me somebody's not gonna knock down the door for this guy.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
the one guy we got for the Mets, the 3rd pitcher, um, oh god,
Chandler,
I hate that my mind is going blank here.
it's been a long day. Chandler Marsh, is that who you were talking about?
No, it was not Hightower.
In the which deal are you talking about here?
It's the Padres deal is what I meant. I'm sorry.
Okay. I believe that is Neighbors. Is it Neighbors? Tyson
I think
Neighbors,
it
is
is
that who you're
Neighbors.
talking about?
Yeah, I think it is Neighbors. I mean,
Yeah,
you look at him, he's got a 185 ERA and a .94 WHIP with 64 strikeouts and
yeah,
32 relief appearances.
yeah,
You know,
yep. He was the number 12 prospect for San Diego.
and he was the top rated bullpen arm coming out of the draft last year.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
I mean, these are solid pickups, and like I said, you're not gonna keep all of them. You're gonna use some of them to go get major league talent. So, again, you weren't supposed to be doing this year, right? You were supposed to be buying and adding to a playoff team that hopefully would get to the World Series. But that didn't happen. So now you have to pivot to the other direction. and Elias, did a good job, uh, doing what he does. I mean, he can scope out young talent, that's for sure. That's undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, look at Trevor Rogers. I remember last year, we were ready to throw him to the curb just for the Stowers Norby trade for Rogers, and Rogers has now had 4 6-inning, 0-run outings in his last 6 starts. So
Yeah,
obviously we kept saying, "What does Elias see that we don't see?" And once again, same thing with Yennier Cano when he brought Yennier Cano over to do what he did. Felix Bautista, you know,
Danny Coulomb,
we've seen he has the ability to pinpoint talent. Yeah,
right,
Danny Coulomb, who actually went to the Rangers, by the way, at the deadline today.
yeah,
Um, so, and I look at like this guy, Ramon Gomez, we got from the Mets. Coming back
yeah,
from Tommy John surgery, he didn't pitch all of 2024. He has thrown a 104.5 mile per hour pitch this year. That's
yeah.
better than
That's
Mason Miller.
that's crazy. That's
I mean, and
record-breaking,
he's
I believe, if I
consistently in
remember.
triple digits at the age of 23.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
Elias has done again, he's done a solid job for what it was, and, now we just play the waiting game, honestly. You see how these guys do in the minors the rest of the year. You're gonna call up some young guys from AAA to fill in because the Orioles need, like, 5 or 6 players on their big league roster now to supplement the losses of the guys they traded, so, you're gonna see more than likely Dylan Beavers make his major league debut this weekend in Chicago at some point, so it's an exciting time, but you face a reality that the rest of this year, there are gonna be some rough patches too. But you're gonna see these exciting young players get opportunities, and you're gonna see, hopefully life from the core players that you're gonna be building with next year in those Gunners and those Jacksons and the Jordan Westbergs of the world.
That's exactly right. And and you get Kyle Bradish back, if he comes back and he pitches like he has pitched for us going into next season, that's going to be huge because that confidence will already be there. Tyler Wells. Tyler Wells has the ability to fit in so many places for us. Me personally, as much as I love him as a starter, I do think he's a back end bullpen arm that we need. And especially with Felix Bautista right now having the issues he's having, Tyler Wells has proven in the past he can close games.
Yeah,
You
I wouldn't be surprised if Tyler Wells is the closer the rest of the way when he gets back. I wouldn't be
Yeah, I
shocked.
agree with that. I agree with that. Albert Suarez is actually starting the third live batting practice, and I know a lot of people are like, "You can't depend on him," but with what he did last year with us, you know, it's not like he went out and deceptively pitched against people to confuse them. He looked more to me like a more refined Greg Maddux in the aspect of how he presented himself pitching-wise. Greg
Mhm.
Maddux studied the art of pitching. Albert Suarez used the art of pitching to be one of our best pitchers last year.
Yeah,
You know
nothing blew you away when you watched him, but,
No.
he the bats were not hitting the ball, right? Like,
Yeah.
he was deceptive in his own way, and it kinda reminds me of Cade Povich a little bit because his stuff's not, like, crazy overpowering, but
No.
his fastball sits at 91, 93, whatever, but it's deceptive. It's the way he throws the ball, and, they hide it well, and I don't know how people can say Big Al isn't dependable when he was one of the most dependable arms on the Orioles last year. He was huge for the Orioles last year.
Yeah.
He was it was remarkable what he did last year, to be honest with you, coming back from overseas to play in the big leagues for the first time in, what was it, 6 years, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Um, it was remarkable what he did. So nobody expected this, obviously, for him to be out this long. It sucks, I know, but again, these are all things you're gonna be keeping an eye on for next season because Big Al still has years of control left as well. So you're gonna have him next year as a depth piece, whether it's in the rotation or as a long relief option.
And he proved he can do both for us, and that's what I liked about him. He was, Ramon Urias pitcher-wise. He'd go out and do his
Yeah,
job, give you his best every time out, and never complained or said a word, you
right.
know? And those are the type of players that we pretty much have on this team now. We don't have anybody crying saying, "I want more playing time." Now, Kobe made it last year. More was frustration coming out of spring training. We get that. He's grown up and matured, and we've seen that this year. Kyle Stowers, even though as frustrated as he waited until this year to express more of his frustration with the simple fact that he knew he was good enough to play, and the Orioles did not see that. And, you hear comments like that, and then you see players like Dylan Beavers, who has shown he's more than capable of being the bigs. Everybody's favorite player to call up, Basayo, and everybody's like, he's not ready, or they're saying he's not ready. It's not his offense that's the problem. And that's what I keep trying to get people to understand. He's only played less than 55% of his games as a catcher. Why am I going to bring a 20-year-old who hasn't played a majority of his career as catcher and say, "Oh, go catch for Major League game for us"? He's got an arm, but his fielding and blocking are not good. And he's not played enough games at first base to say he can consistently be a good first baseman. So what do? Let him grow. Now's the opportunity that we have depleted the team. Bring him up and see what you've got. But before then, I didn't see a necessity of bringing him up when, we had people we unfortunately had to sign, but people who could come in and still bring in a competitive edge to the team without having to learn on the fly.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think the rush for Samuel Basayo is gonna die down now, because of Alex Jackson and how much he's, produced so far. He's a fine backup to have, honestly, and,
Oh, yeah.
um, yeah, so I think you're gonna let Sam spend the rest of August in AAA, and he's somebody you're probably gonna see in September, um but, that's not the worst possible thing. I mean, the reason why people wanted Sam up right away is because the Orioles literally had nobody left to choose from,
Yep.
right? Gary Sanchez went down, Maverick Hanley went down, Chadwick Tromp, um,
Adley.
whoever Adley, of course. And then we had to settle for Jacob Stallings and Alex Jackson, which on paper was not pretty whatsoever. And Stallings didn't pan out. I mean, you could tell he was a veteran guy, but he just didn't produce offensively. So,
Nope.
and Alex Jackson took advantage of the opportunity, and kudos to him, but he has a negative career WAR. So, it's one of those things. So, yeah, I don't think you rush Sam at all now, especially with all this going down and with Alex being serviceable. I mean, like you said, the bat's ready. Just get him innings behind the plate. That's the
Yep.
biggest thing, and having him call games.
Well, also keeping him healthy. I mean, he did start the year once again not able to throw from the catching position
And he had
until
oblique
yep.
issue recently, so that's
So
always that's
la
always a scary word. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Last year he started the season, he wasn't able to throw. So, he's there's injury concerns there. And unfortunately, the pod we tried to do the other night that technical difficulties with it. We discussed the training staff and the injuries there, but I digress. We're going to do that another day because today's all about the trade deadline anyway. Um, uh, Final words on it. What do you think? What is your opinion of the way the Orioles handled the trade season to the deadline? What grade would you give them? And is there anything you would have done differently?
So I think again, I feel like a broken record, but for what it was, for what the Orioles had to do, Elias did a decent job and a really a solid job. The Padres haul is what throws this thing over the top for me. Getting 4 top 30 prospects from the Padres was absolutely huge. Um,
Agree.
Again, they shouldn't have had to come to that point. Um, but for what it was, I think Elias did a solid job. I just wish he would have thrown a couple of more triple A players in there, if you know what I'm saying, like 23 to 25-year-old players who are ready to help the big leagues, whether it be later this year or immediately next year. But it is what it is. Again, you're going to use some of that prospect capital to go out and trade for major league ready talent in the offseason. Um, and you're going to have a lot of new top 30 prospects in the organization. The whole entire list is going to shift because of this deadline. So overall, there's some really intriguing arms. that he acquired, Wellington Arcena, I think might be my favorite so far, and he was in the Gregory Soto deal with the Mets. Um, but yeah, overall, I would give him probably a B. I would say a B just because, for one, you shouldn't have been there in the first place and had to do all this, but you made the most of it and you got 20 some players back for 9. So, um, I would go with a B.
I can see that. I definitely can agree with that grade. I definitely agree with everything you say. Arcina seems to be the most popular of the draft capital that we got in our group. I know Zach was head over heels when we got him. We're actually going to have Zach on within the next week or so to discuss the new top 30 anyway. So that name will probably come up very easily.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I agree. I think this might have been Elias's best showing as a GM midseason for us. Because it does show the ability that he does have to define and find talent, as well as the ability to utilize this talent for what his blueprint is. I remember the comment he made after Brandon High got fired, where he said he has to stop running this team with his heart and do what's best for the organization.
Right.
And I think his wake up call was being told that by David Rubenstein.
Yeah.
And that might be why we saw the aggression we saw out of this trade deadline and why we might see a different offseason going forward, which I do hope involves getting a veteran manager. I know a lot of people are saying Tony Manzolini, with the way the Orioles are playing, might have secured the job. I'm not so sure about that, but
Yeah.
that's
I'm not either, and I don't mean to be looking down at everything, but, the Orioles just did make a move as well as we're doing this show. Um, they have signed left-handed pitcher Dietrich Enns, um, and it looks to be a 34-year-old left-hander. Um, he was with Detroit this year, only pitched in, I believe, 2 games, has a 5.6 ERA, so not much for a big league stat line this year. Um, but he does have a 2.89 ERA in the minors this year. So that's a plus and looks like for 14 games. He's pitched 7 games in the big leagues this year for the Tigers. Um, so, again, somebody you might see in the bullpen, just to fill out the rest of the year. He is a left-hander, so that's interesting as well. But we've had a lot of moves made today. So just add it to the list, right?
I agree. It's definitely a fun close to the deadline. I think we had 5 articles come through in the last 2 hours. It's
Props
like
to
as soon
you.
as one was finishing, another one was starting. Well, props to you because you were putting them out as quickly as I was getting them writ. So, or written. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So, it's this is yours and my time to shine. Every year because we do seem to crack down on the trade deadline and be ready to go. Starting this year, it started a little bit earlier than anticipated, but 10 o'clock last night, we were still writing articles.
I
So
tell you what, it was a long night. It was a long day today. Caffeine was running through the veins for both of us. And you know what? We both went to work today, and I told my mother when I got home, I said, "Mom, I think next year I'm going to take this day off. I think I'm going to take the trip just in
that might be,
case." But it was a
that
lot
might
of
be a
work. It
wise
was
idea.
a lot of work, but a lot of fun as usual. And that's what we do. We bring people perspective from a fan's point of view, but also a realistic aspect. And we need to give people the facts. And we've been doing that since
Yep.
2019. So, and you've been a big part of it. So thank you very much. And if you all, whoever's listening, want to read and recap yourselves of all of the moves made from the past week, you can go over to the BaltimoreBattery.com. Each article is separate, so you're going to have each prospect haul, the players acquired by Mike Elias in the Orioles. Super easy. Just go to the BaltimoreBattery.com. Leave us a comment. Let us know your thought. That's the biggest thing. We want to hear from you and what you think of the deadline. We can think a certain way, but we want to know what you think. That's the most important thing.
That's the best part of doing this is getting to interact with you all. I will say one thing we pride ourselves on at the Battery is the communication we have with the fans and our followers. I was telling Jared the other day, there was a nice conversation I had online with like 4 or 5 people on X, just going over certain things and ideas on what they saw from the Orioles this year, and very civil. Nobody got mad at anybody else, which is all we want. We want people to be able to have an open conversation, be willing to respect each other's opinions. Daily in our group chat, we have differing opinions, especially when it comes to Mike Elias.
Right.
And yet we still can come back every day and be friends and, not get mad at anybody for being different.
Yeah, exactly. We're not
So
all gonna be we're
that's
not
welcome.
robots. Yeah, we're not robots. We're not gonna agree on every single thing, and that's what makes us special, but we're gonna give you the facts, we're gonna give you everything you need to know, and then we're gonna hear from you, and then we're gonna give you our thoughts individually as each writer, right? So, we're gonna bring a
Like,
little something something to each move made, every piece of news. So and Steven, the best part, I know we're running really at the end of time here, but um, the best part is when people tag us on Twitter, right? They tag the Baltimore Battery account saying, "Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what's the situation with this?" Because they want the God's honest truth, and they don't want to have to hear some bull crap from an Orioles media writer who's not going to give
yeah,
them each and every detail that they need to know, and sometimes, quite frankly, give them the God's honest truth about every situation. So
correct.
we that's what we wanna be. We wanna be a reliable source for people, and we know we're not insiders. We don't have press box access, right? But
Nope.
we're diehard fans, and we know this team on the ins and the outs.
I mean, trade deadline today. I have my phone was blowing up with people who follow us. What have you heard? How do we get? Who did we get? Maybe we get this. Maybe we get this. Do you think we can? And that's basically a normal thing. I have conversations, and I'm sure you do too as well, Jared. Especially with your job and everything that you reach across a lot further than I can. Um,
Mhm.
you have numerous people who are contacting you, asking you questions. What did you hear about this? Especially with the trade deadline. Have you heard what we're getting, what we're doing, and stuff like that? And it's not because we're inside that clubhouse. It's because we actually are reading, paying attention, getting information from, people who are involved in that. And we're going to tell it to you the way, whether you want to know the actual truth or if you want to know a little bit of that truth, we're still going to bring it to you. And we
Right,
pride
exactly.
ourselves in being an honest and integral source for information.
Right, exactly, and we know, like I said, we know we're not professional in a way, but we are. At the same time, right? We're reliable, and we built that trust with people over the now going on 6 years we've been doing this, right? We didn't just happen overnight. We've earned this with people, and I'm so happy that our followers, come to us and interact with us. And, Steven, even when we go to the ballpark, people are recognizing us and,
Yep.
they come up and talk to us, that's what we want. We want engagement with people. Every time we're at the yard, we want to see you. We'll be happy to talk with you, take photos, interact, whatever you wanna do, because that's who we are. We're fans just like them. That's exactly what we are.
Yep. And that's what makes this job the best is we're fans.
Mhm.
It's I know it's a job, I don't mean job, but it makes what we do here the fun. It's it's
Yeah,
it's all out of our pleasure and joy for the game of baseball and Orioles and to have that interaction with the fans. And you can't change that. There's nothing you can change or take back about that.
absolutely. I agree.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap things up here. Jared did mention the BaltimoreBattery.com is a great source to go to for our articles. You can also find on X, formerly of Twitter, Blue Sky, and TikTok with the Be More at symbol, the Be More Battery. You can find the Final Strike pretty much on the same thing except Blue Sky. Haven't gone on there yet. At SRJ Heckman, YouTube under the same thing, and you can even find Final Strike on X with the Final Strike underscore. Jared, do you have anything you'd like to pass along as we close up here?
No, I just wanna say thanks again for having me. Hopefully, I'm not a one and done. Hopefully, you bring me back on. That would be awesome.
And last year, our highest rated episode was with you, so you definitely are coming back.
Well, I think that was because the Orioles acquired a guy named Corbin Burns. I think that's more like it, but to each their own.
Maybe, but yeah. That's right. Well, I appreciate you coming on here. As always, it's a pleasure and it's a joy. And we do know you and me can talk baseball forever, and that's what's great about our collectivity. Is surprisingly as close as Jared and me are on screen here. It's where we live too. We're literally that close to each other. So
5 minutes away. Yep.
exactly. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for listening. Birdland, please drop a line and let us know what you think. What are your thoughts on the trade deadline? What are your thoughts on what Mike Elias pulled off today? I know based off what I've seen on social media, there's a lot of differential opinions, and I've seen a lot of the Baltimore beat writers trying to explain things. I know people have their own thoughts and opinions. We want to hear it. So please, whether it's dropping a line here in the comment section, private message, dropping a line on our X feeds, please do. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what your thoughts are on this. That's how we interact. That's how we get to know each other. And that's how we know what everybody's pulse is on the whole situation on a very difficult 2025 year. So until next time, Birdland, I want to thank you. Peace out. Make sure you keep that beer cold. Jared, as always, it's been a pleasure. Talk to you soon. And Birdland, peace out.